just to get a feel of the audience, from entrepreneurs, I know quite a few of yours. How many of you are in the 0 to 2 crore revenue range? Right? So we are completely in the arch territory, and my numbers of revenue, EBITDA, PAT all go out of the window, right? So I'm going to get straight, to the panel, and we really can't have a better, more experienced panel out here. Your perspective on competition, artificial or other ways created by entrepreneurs to reach out to you?
Yeah, so I can talk for IDG Ventures, but I'm sure as we speak in the industry, we know that each firm has their own pieces. So even within, so first of all, the way we look at life is that we like certain sectors. So we would have some thesis on what works, what we like as characteristics inside the sector. And so when we meet an entrepreneur, even in a corridor, we generally quickly know whether it falls in our range or not within our range in terms of the sector or other matrices and things like that. The second thing is that out of close to 200 deals that we see, we invest in one. So on an average, we get to receive and see 80 to 100 deals a month in our team. So that means in a year we see 1000 to 1200 deals, and we invest in 5 or 6. So for us, spending the same amount of time on all doesn't make much value. What we do is we quickly identify which ones we like, right? Which falls within the team, which falls within, like he said, a big market and a great management team, entrepreneur team, which can actually exploit the market opportunity, hopefully with a defendable business model or technology, right? If these three are there, we are active there. And we don't wait for somebody coming and saying that, hey, I have somebody else who's chasing me, so I want you to give it. There are enough examples where we have actually gone about telling people, saying that if somebody is giving the term sheet, please go and take it and run. Don't wait for us. We will take time.
Very nice.
Right? So we actually have a real life case where the first day we spoke to a company, it was reached out by us. The first day we spoke to them, that guy had 2 term sheets on the table. One from a seed stage fund, another from a global fund. It's an e-commerce space, right? And so we said, fine, first tell me about your business. So it's in a very complex business which others cannot crack, which is, let's say, buying eyewear online. The company is Lenskart, right? And we liked it because the market had discontinuities which can be crashed through online. And the entrepreneur is a phenomenal guy. So he was all of 26 years old, had only 1 year of corporate experience. So he didn't know what cannot be done. That's very important, right? So most of us with a lot of experience in new areas know why something cannot be done, right? So he didn't know what cannot be done. So he said anything is possible, right? And there is global benchmark in terms of eyewear being sold online, both which started in the last boom and also the new one where prescription eyewear was getting sold. And we knew that discontinuity can be managed very well, and he was throwing technology at the problem. So we continued engaging with him. He came and presented to us. He was looking to raise $2 million. And the seed stage fund has offered him $1 million. The global fund started with $1 million. After realizing that we are engaging, they increased it to $1.5 million. Right? And so in his presentation, we went back and told him, saying that, look, if you're looking for $2 million, please don't bother. Go take that 1.5. If you can do in 2, you can do in 1.5. We believe you need 4 to reach the next inflection point. For you to get next round of funding, to reach certain milestones, to achieve certain proof points, for the next round of investors to come and value you better. And this is because of our experience we got 4 e-commerce companies, and our fund is the only one which has the exposure and experience of all e-commerce companies of ours being funded by follow-on investors at valuations higher than our valuation. Right? Nobody else has that track record. There are many others who have almost every company out there shut down or merged. Some of them have got big successes and also some which have been shut down. So having said that, and all of these were in vertical commerce, so we know what works in vertical commerce, what is necessary. If you are interested in taking $4 million, we can move forward. He took 48 hours, he came back and said, I'll take it. We didn't increase valuation, nothing of that.
Very
So this is very important. We liked it, we went back, told him why we will invest, but we will not go into competitive business.
Very interesting. From an entrepreneur's perspective, there is also, today there are multiple pockets of money. There is angel, there is seed fund, there is VC, and two things. One is there is a time to know when to bootstrap and when to go to equity investors. That's clear. And from your experience in companies, South India, Chennai, good examples of where bootstrapping has worked and to increase the value in the company. Two, actually knowing, when to go to fundraise. And you talked about Raju's example, fantastic, right? Essentially, the investor is funding the CV there, right? The entrepreneur, serial entrepreneur. So, could he have bootstrapped, for example, right? So, he has his money from his previous ventures, successful exits. But he knew to get into Medall, he needs the partner with this. So, some examples of companies which have created value by bootstrapping, and some other examples of companies where they knew that, and Medall I think is already an example there, where partnering and parting with equity is seen as the better strategy than trying to bootstrap.
I'll try and answer it a little differently. In my view, what I keep telling entrepreneurs when I meet them is, obviously taking equity is taking a very, very expensive form of capital. Sudhir in minced words, he said 20% IRR and above, right? So it's obviously any equity investor is looking for significant IRR return, multiples on the money that he is investing. So debt is certainly a cheaper form of capital. If your business can be run with debt, there's scores of IT services companies that come and say that I need to raise capital. I mean, these days I don't see so many IT services entrepreneurs, but about 10 years back, truckloads of them used to descend and say, look, I run some IT services business, I need some capital. My fundamental question to all of them has been that, look, at best you need working capital, right? You're running a business where there is some form of time and material, you're contracting, you have a project, the project is going to give you money. You're not creating anything by investing money for the long-term value. It is a reasonably predictable cash flow business. As long as businesses are reasonably predictable cash flow businesses, in terms of, let's say you have a product and you're trying to go out into the market, create a brand value, fine-tune the product, that it is going to take time and money before you see the first rupee back. Whereas if you are in the business of service, for example, take my business, investment banking. I see no reason why I need capital, ever. At best, I will have a challenge between the time I get my client fees and the time I need to pay my salaries. But beyond that, I'm not at an intrinsic level, I'm not creating any value. I'm not investing money to create something. Whereas there are certain other businesses where intrinsically value is being created. And those kind of businesses cannot expect to get money from the traditional risk-averse banking system. So you need somebody who is able to, kind of understand the dynamics of that business and who is able to underwrite the risk there in some way and form and partake in that journey by providing you capital, which, by its very nature can either return enormous amount of monies or can potentially go down the tube. I mean, investors seek to protect themselves with, what we call as liquidation preference. But the fact is, there should be value that can be extracted even at that stage. So there is a fundamental risk that they are taking by kind of putting that money. knowing fully well that, well, there could be a second round, as TCM alluded to, or there could be several, situations where there may not be a second round. So, knowing when to raise capital is extremely critical, and the fundamental to knowing that is the nature of the business that you are in. Classic case, you don't have to look too far. C.K. Ranganathan in Chennai. He ran his business for, at least I have known CKR for close to, a quarter century now. He ran his business for that long before he chose to take external capital. The first rupee of external capital last year. It was in a business where, he did create brands, but at the same time the products were going into the marketplace, they were being bought by consumers, money was coming back, he was plowing it back, he was managing with third-party units to kind of make those products and push it into the market. So which means that you are not investing in capacities in-house, but trying to get it from others. So you are trying to create something into a working capital cycle, and you go and do it. There are certain other entrepreneurs who, choose to dilute early on. Somebody like Mr. Ashok Soota when he started Mindtree, even as it was an idea in his head, there was capital which was available to him. So TCM is here, and so you're better off hearing it from TCM. So there are certain entrepreneurs who do it at a certain stage. There are certain others who continue to keep taking it. The classic example I give is financial services, and I don't know how many of you are familiar with that business. There is a Sundaram Finance and there is a Shriram Group, right? Sundaram Finance, if you look at the capital balance sheet of Sundaram Finance and read it very closely, more than 95% of the paid up equity share capital of Sundaram Finance has come out of bonus shares. It is also in a business which needs capital. It is also subjecting itself to the same rigorous capital adequacy norms and stipulations of Reserve Bank of India. But they manage the growth and the return in such a manner that they have not gone out and taken external capital. At least some of the old timers will remember when they did their last rights issue, but for this generation of people, probably nobody would even remember them raising money. But there were certain other businesses in the same sector, in the same line of business, who choose to go out and raise capital. Either because they are going at a faster rate than the monies that they are internally generating in a business like NBFC, or they are creating intellectual property which needs substantial amount of investment, which cannot be met either out of your own available resources or out of the banking system. So it's very situation specific. It is very difficult to generalize and say that this you can and this you cannot. I think I'll leave it to TCM to kind of give the Mindtree example.
TCM, the Mindtree definitely. And between that, I want to get to audience questions very quickly. The gaps that you see in the ecosystem, right? The first form, being the typical usage, rely on friends, family, and fools for money. To the angel investor, and then there is angel investor typically has a certain size in which they will operate, and then you will operate in a 10 crore kind of minimum kind of this thing. So are you seeing gaps emerge in the ecosystem where an entrepreneur should not fall in between? I should not be too late for an angel investor but be too early to reach out to somebody like you. So are you seeing these gaps, and is there any way in which the entrepreneur can kind of leapfrog these gaps and get to the other side? So please talk about the Mindtree one, and then maybe talk about this.
So to start with the Mindtree classic example, there were hundreds of ideas which somebody will talk, and this is not rocket science, right? So even in 1999-2000, this was getting close to fully understood business model anybody can do type of company, right? So we passed quite a few, hundreds of them, but at the same time, when this is an execution business, right? When the management team of Mindtree came together, actually they got put together by Walden. There were two different teams which were speaking to Walden, and then they got put together. So that time we gave a $9 million funding. Walden put 5 and Siddharth put 4. $9 million funding on a paper plan for Mindtree. Right. That was because if you are taking rocket fuel like this, like Ramji said, you have to create a significant value. Back in '99, when possibly Wipro, Infosys were $100 million. This team said in 5 years they will create a $100 million company. And that's the value that we will create. And it's a capable, executable management team. So we backed it on a paper plan. Obviously, if you take rocket fuel, see, venture capital is the costliest form of funding any equity dilution. Right? If you take rocket fuel, you better go to the moon. At that time, don't go land in Bombay. Right? That's very important. Or get stuck somewhere. So that is very important, and that is what we look for in the entrepreneur who can actually create that significant value. Right? If we see that that is unlikely to be done, and like we said, it's by great market, great opportunity, but all aspects have to be put together by the entrepreneur. Because technically these two can coexist, a good opportunity and a good technology. But if the execution entrepreneur is not there to make the best out of it, it's not possible. So we back entrepreneurs, that's where the valuation comes from, especially in the early stage. So going back to your question in terms of, I think the way we look at this thing, that every business has its own rhythm, right? And while an investor may not invest in you, right? If it is creating value of some other, so what we call as lifestyle company, there are a number of businesses which actually will create jobs, will create profit, will create a good dividend stream for the entrepreneur. That's good enough for an imported car and annual international holiday and whatnot. And you own the company 100%. There's nothing wrong about it. Right? When you take a VC on, it's like carrying a monkey on your back. We want multiples of the money that we put in, not 20% IRR. Right? That's the lowest that we look for in a not so good scenario. Right? We look for, can I make my money or can I make 10 times the money? Right? So only if that possibility exists is when you should take on a VC, obviously like-minded guy. But just to give we did an analysis which is held true in a very mature country like US, where this has been going on for 60 years, and also in a place like India where for only it's 15 years, and then Angel possibly is less than 10 years now in terms of in a structured way. Every angel funded company, only 1 out of 5 or 6 actually get funded by VC. The balance 5 either have to survive on their own and then create cash flows to be able to return to the VCs in the form of dividend or buyback or whatever. Right? For VCs in Series A, only 1/3 of them, maximum 40% of them actually go for the next round of funding. So it's a brutal world, right? If you don't meet certain levels which help the next round investor interested, nobody will fund you, and you will be in that what we call the Trishanku situation. And it's a very, very difficult time, right? If you are continuing to burn, you know that 6 months down the line you are going to run out of money, but then nobody is giving you term sheet. So what is very important, once you take money, it is like a bomb which is with a long thread, right? At the end of it, the day you take the money, the length of the thread is known and it is lit, right? Money is burning. If you are throwing up money, it's different. If money is burning, you know that there is only so much amount of time to reach the next level where the next round investor would be interested to put money or not. This is not even factoring market conditions. In between, suppose there is a financial crisis or something, either your projections will go haywire or actually investors may stay away from investing, right? Which happened. In 2009, we had only one deal which we invested in for various reasons. So that is very important for you to look at. So to avoid that, most important thing is absolutely paranoid about those 2, 3 or 4 things that the next investor wants. And you should be there at least 6-8 months before you need the money, you run out of money. Because any round of funding takes, earlier we used to say 4 to 6 months, now it has become more and more like 6 to 9 months. Right? There are some hard deals which close very fast, right? But those are exceptions. We can't assume that.
Fantastic, fantastic. So, I'm kind of going to get a feel, audience questions, how many questions do we have? Just say and get ready, okay, 1, 2, 3, okay, great. So, please warm up your questions. We're going to get some mics to you. We would rather have, and just talk about one line about what you do, your name, what you do, and address it if possible to the angel, the VC, or the advisory firm. And just one clarification, Ramki also does wear another hat. They have a seed fund within Spark Capital, and they've had great track records of investing into businesses, Intercept Consulting, and then they went on to sell another business to WNS for $90 million, right? Great. So so they also write checks, 1 to 2 crore if I'm right, that range. So he also wears a seed fund hat. So please address the question, identify yourself, address the question to a specific panelist so that we can get as many questions in. Thanks.
Thank you. We are into lorry online hiring. This is basically a B2B model. 98% is B2B, and in which we are launching on August 15th. Now, I have worked on some project similar to that in my some 5 or 7 years back, and I learned by burning 1.5 crores, and then I came out and now I'm launching something different. Now, my question to you is, at what size we will get this debt funding? Say, for example, like how many years of the organization existence should be there, and what sort of a top line and bottom line when you will get debt funding?
I will probably answer or try to throw some perspectives on Arun's point earlier and then come to your question. In the last maybe decade or so, or more than a decade, maybe in the last 5 years or so, I think this gap in this continuum is getting bridged and getting bridged very regularly and systematically. So on the equity side, you have the incubators, the angels, the early stage VCs, the growth capital providers, the PEs, and so on. We are also seeing some kind of a change or some kind of source of capital available on the fixed income side, which is the debt side. So there are people like, let's say, Silicon Valley Bank, who go behind, and I'm sure TCM has worked very closely with them, who go exclusively behind companies which are funded by venture capitalists, and they provide what they call as venture debt to those companies, right? There are non-banking finance companies today which have come up who are focused exclusively in the SME domain, and a lot of them are actually trying to see whether they can model their lending pattern to try and match it to cash flows as opposed to taking collaterals. So there are enough number of NBFCs in the market, and I can probably throw some names offline when we meet, who are ready to go and advance monies to you based on the strength of the cash flow as opposed to strength of the collateral. So if your business model is such that you have a cash flow stream which is kicking in by way of the lorry rental which happens, and for you at the end of the day you are probably underwriting some lorry capacity, and there could be a time gap between the time you underwrite that capacity and the time some customer comes and picks it up and starts paying you. So for that gap to be funded, there could be financing companies who may come forward, provided you have a reasonable number of suppliers of vehicles, meaning fleet operators on one side, and a reasonable number of customers who have started using your portal, so that at least there is some predictability to the demand supply framework there.
Thanks, Ramki. Wonderful. The next question, if I can request, there is actually another panel apparently talking about financing alternative as well. So could we kind of address it specifically to stick to the topic of valuation? Any questions you may have around that? That's the best way to leverage this panel's experience. Yeah. So if you can, next question, focus on that aspect, that will be great.
Yes, this Ashif Abdi, and I develop apps for iPhone and iPad. Like you said, we have the vision, like how to go about with that app and kind of thing. Now I'm working full time in my company, and I'm doing this as a weekend. And this startup is called Koyaka. And my question is, like, we as a startup we have a good vision and the thing. Now the thing is, we want like very small amount to go with as a start to improve the product. My question is whether we should make the product and show and come to you, or because certain products needs money, a little bit of money, like very meager amount. But as an individual or as a team, we were like in the middle class and we are like catching up. So how would you see that?
Just to get the question right, are you saying that app doesn't cost, you just need to clear, so what is the kind of amount you're thinking of? Does it require, for example, you can quit your job and become a full-time focused on that?
Yes.
So you're talking order of tens of lakhs if at all?
Yes, that's right.
So Dev, you want to take?
No, I mean, that's a hard one to sort of. So as an early stage, we see our fund will not invest. Just to give you clarity, he asked earlier on, do you say no? Or do you wait for all the yeses to come and you say yes to everybody? We are very clear that we do not invest in certain areas. Because I am also a businessman like you. I have taken money from somebody else, which I have invested, and I am supposed to only produce a return. So I am a businessman as well. I am also an entrepreneur. And so the first rule of entrepreneurship to make money above 20% is what you don't do, rather than say, I do everything. So for example, your part of the world would be a classical angel. And that angel could be your parent, your best friend, neighbor, classmate, who can actually help you with solving that first step.
For example, in Cochin, Startup Village has come only for people like yourselves. And there are investors who want to give 5 lakhs and 10 lakhs. So a special Kerala fund has been set up only to put 5 lakhs, 25 lakhs, 50 lakhs. So we need to go to such investors. There is a set of investors who do it.
Incubators, accelerators, as Ramji said, the ecosystem is getting built up quite rapidly. We know of in Pai Chennai we ran this program, Pitch Fest, after which the VIT, the Vendor Institute, they offered incubation to 3 companies, and they offer very soft terms, right? They offer up to 50 lakhs, and they don't take equity stake in a company, and you need to pay 6% back after a certain period.
There are 400 incubators in the country.
Hi, my name is Hari. We're building a travel personalization product. The question here is that, so before you go to, let's say, VCs or angels where we understand term sheets and other things, let's say you're looking for a founding partner, right, be it in the sales or the technology side, where you don't have a deep understanding of, how to value company, comparables don't work, right? And you need that person to actually come in and kind of take it to the next level before you can go for funding and raise money. So how, in those kind of situations, how is the best way to kind of value and what's the kind of equity to share or part with? And then you add an extra complexity. So given you have cash flows coming in, you're willing to pay some amount of salary, right? Then how does that equation change? How do you pay? And especially if there's a friend coming in as well. So it becomes a bit tricky as to know how exactly is the value, what percentage, and any light there or any heuristics or back of them rules will be really helpful.
Very good, the back of term. There is a perception, right or wrong, that VCs will always take 25-30% anyway. So I might as well ask for more money because anyway 30% is gone, right? Is that a myth? Do you guys really work from a back of the envelope, both at the angel stage and at the VC stage? Maybe from a fund head as well. You always want 30%?
No. I think I think your point is very important point that you brought up. So how do I value somebody else? First of all, how do you value yourself? Vis-a-vis everybody else. And then value somebody else. And it starts with that myself first. Do I value myself? Do I persist? Do Do I do things differently? It starts with that. And then that partner that you seek. I don't mind giving 75% to somebody. If my 25% is going to be worth a whole lot more than my holding 100%. So you have very different formats. If you look at the Infosys, we just announced that it's worth 7,700 crores, but owns only 1.6%. And in the same industry, you have Mr. Premji owns, who forcefully had to sell out because the exchange is saying you can't hold more than 75%. So he had to forcefully give it away in charity. Same model, same 30 years, approach is different. I think you have to, it's choice you make. You can hold all of your company forever, if you so feel it, if you're clear about it, you can keep doing it. You don't need to give ESOPs, you don't give anything. Model available in this country. Both successful, both $10 billion. So it's a choice on your own valuation and then how you value others. Like he said, Mr. Soota came from that model and chose to partake, to share, to grow with somebody else. Don't forget, he built that companies because those with that model. So it's a lot to do with yourself, your own psyche will be very important. Like he said, we'll come to DCF and all of that later, which is also very important. But I guess this is much more an art than science. Much, much more. Early days, for sure.
TC, we have thumb rules.
See, thumb rules, like I said, are there based on thousands and 100,000 deals that might have taken place across the world. But the range, they are subject to a range, right? 25 to 40% is what you will dilute in Series A. Depending on your traction, it may change, right? And depending on, like he said, euphoria, maybe sometimes it changes also, right? Good time of the market, not so good time of the market. Some of those happen. But coming back to your question about looking for a co-founder and then how do you value? It's a question of what is the value that it creates, right? So I would always say that somebody suppose you are a techie and then you are looking for a customer-facing guy who has to bring dollar through the door, right? Then I think you should value it significantly because that's what will create value. There are enough great technologies which have not seen light of the day, right? So everybody in this room uses Microsoft, and everybody, at least 90% of them would love to hate them, right? But you don't have a choice. That's the dominance that they have. Right? So I think what is very important is what do you value, and is it something that is fungible easily or not? And so that is one part, in terms of a techie. So if it's a marketing guy or a sales guy, he has to get a tech person. It is not that it is easily findable, but at the same time that is still an enabling function, right? So that is one. The second way that you should look at, and beyond even going down the path of how much to give to him, first you both should be comfortable that you want to be in a deal for 7 years or 10 years together, right? And should be comfortable. And I know it's very, very exciting talking about starting up with somebody else and then get on. And there are enough startup companies where the entrepreneurs break up in the first 12 months time, right? And that you should be very, very cautious about it. I think the toughest things will happen when things are not going very well, not in the early days. It's exactly the same honeymoon period and then the reality that sets in, right? So you need to be conscious about it and spend enough time on that before getting to the stake part of it. But that's also important to sort out.
Hello. Yeah, my name is Sunil and we run MyAndaman.com. Evaluation of the company is important if we want to look for funds. But also it is important I'm not looking for funding or investors, even though it is important for own growth and setting up the new target and growth and other.
So in that case, how we do evaluate our company when it is a small size? Okay, when company goes public limited company and all that is quite easier. But when it is small, we have 5 employees. We have certain fixed salaries giving to them. We have certain fixed customer base. We have limited assets and all those things. So in that case, small company, how do we evaluate the company? As in the way that I want to go for the next target. I want to target in next level, not an investor perspective. I'll just give you an example. There's this company in Mobi, right? They kind of very famous startup. They got funded angels. Business plan didn't work out. Then scrambled and got a venture money, and then went on. The last round they raised $200 million from SoftBank, the Japanese venture fund. And recently the entrepreneur behind it was asked, how did you really kind of raise that kind of money at $1 billion valuation? He actually said that I went to this Japanese gentleman who was the head of SoftBank and said I want $250 million, right? And he said, okay, I'll give you 200. So his point was just ask, right? And you will figure it out. So it's largely in your mind what your cap is that particular learning. I'll let any of them ask. So don't think small was his point, right? There's no peg, and Ramki also pointed about examples like that, right? So he just went and asked. Any other example? You are good. There is a science, but we are in our territory.
No, I don't think you could take Masayoshi to be such a dumb guy. He's worth 93 billion, not just that. He knows how to put money out. Yeah. So I think he's got 1,500 investments around. He's done it many times over. But I think, to your point, just for the sake of doing a valuation, I just want to do a valuation. I don't want to do a deal, which is fine. What's the value of my apartment? So I ask my neighbor and I go around and what is the last deal done at? He says 6,000, 8,000, 10,000. And he says this is 10,000 rupees a square foot. And then you ask what is the new building coming up, and you go there and ask what's the new building coming up. Just for the sake of doing it, you can do it. That's fine. And normal parameters are that there are certain benchmarks. Financial, perception, team, customers, and 20 vectors we all have in terms of how to value it scientifically also. One is the art, but ultimately, at the end of the day, we're dealing with money and making money. So whatever value you say, if you say that this apartment is 10,000 rupees a square foot, there has to be a deal on the table that says yes, it's 10,000 bucks a square foot. And somebody's going to be willing, if it's 2,000 square feet, somebody's going to be willing to cut a check for 2 crores. And it's a valuable. So if you have a business and you're saying what's the value of my business, then it should have parameters that satisfy the value. Either that business or that type of business. So I can have a Sangeeta restaurant, I can own one. And a deal may have happened that if you ran one restaurant like that, it could be worth 1 crore. So either there's a deal backing that value or there is a yield. There's some income that's coming from that asset, that business that you're doing. So if 20 rupees a square foot is the rent in my building, I can't get more than 35,000 rupees for that flat, then I can calculate. How much do I need? Is it 10,000 bucks? The yield is 3%. Is the yield okay with 3%? Yeah, that's what all of the country is willing to put a value on that apartment, but not willing to take any rent at all. Because actually we can't spend money on rent. But if that is the benchmark, you come with that benchmark and that stands as your value. But don't worry about number of employees in your life. I mean, WhatsApp had 55. It's not about number of employees. It's about what you do with 55 people. You make 50 crores of profit. You have 1 billion customers. So the way you do it is, it's not the number of employees. It's ultimately customers, money that you can make, which actually gets you to value your business. Not financial investors like us. Thank you.
Fantastic, fantastic. So I'm getting strong signals saying we've eaten 5 minutes into lunch already. So we can keep going on. So please, do feel free to tap these gentlemen offline. Thanks Ramki, TCM and Sudeep. It's been fantastic. Thank you very much all.